Good morning. My name is Edith Kimani, and I'm making a special appearance on KTN Morning Express to talk about what has been called the largest infrastructural project in Ethiopia's history, and it's also going to be the world's fourth largest hydropower project. We're talking about the Gibe 3 Dam project. It began in 2006, but it has come with its fair share of controversies. And this morning, I'm joined by Lepalo Gideon, who is the executive director of an organization called Save Lake Turkana Campaign Project,
right.
Which is precisely for what it says, saving Lake Turkana. What is the correlation between this dam in Ethiopia and Lake Turkana?
Well, basically, the construction of Gibe 3 Dam will be done on the source of the only river, which is the Omo River, which is the only permanent river feeding into Lake Turkana. That river is the main source of the water getting into Lake Turkana. So once people mess with it, the lifeline of the lake is equally messed around with.
All right, but I know initially you were saying it's fine, the Ethiopians can construct this dam so long as there's water flow into Lake Turkana.
That's right.
What changed?
We've got a number of fears that we are battling with. One, we thought it was wise that once the damming is done upstream, this water should be allowed to flow downstream, so that communities like my own who are living on the lower stream will have access to this water.
Yeah.
But the stories that is doing runs right now is, this water has been diverted beside generating power to do all manner of activities like growing sugarcane and stuff like that.
All right, so let me just get this straight. What is your cause? What is your campaign? Are you saying stop the construction of the dam entirely, or just open up the water flow from the Omo River into Lake Turkana?
All along, our first agenda was to stop this dam in the first place. But along the way, we realized that, we were fighting people with connections, people with money. And we said, probably the next thing will be, yes, do the damming upstream if you can, but please just allow the water to flow downstream.
Yeah. How have your campaigns gone so far? How has that been received? Because I understand in Ethiopia, those who are against this dam cannot even speak out openly, let alone raise their concerns to government.
Our organization has done a number of several things. One, we've written articles about this dam. Two, we've raised a petition online. Three, we've actually raised this issue in our own parliament. Four, we're actually just saying this lake is our lifeline. Can somebody just allow this water to flow so that we'll not have problems? All
right, I'm glad you said lifeline, because I think we jumped the gun. Why is it so important that the water keeps flowing to Lake Turkana? I know that there are figures which have been given, people saying over 500,000 people's livelihoods are going to be, affected or at risk, but you have a slightly bigger figure on the back of your card. You're saying 5 million indigenous people's lives are going to be affected.
Well, I must start by saying Lake Turkana is Africa's third biggest lake. It is the world's 26th biggest lake in the world. So you're talking of a water mass that is found in the middle of nowhere. It's a desert lake, all right? Communities like my own, who are basically fishermen, who rely on this lake entirely for their survival, for their source of livelihood, will have no lifeline to support themselves. Number two, this water is very, very vital for both the animals and human beings, and for the fish as well. So if you tamper with the water temperatures, fish will not be able to breed. So this is quite a multifaceted problem.
All right. I understand the concerns of, first of all, ruining or interfering with the ecological composition of Lake Turkana and the indigenous people who are indeed living along that area. But we have to look at the costs and consequences. Ethiopia is said to have spent $1.7 billion on this dam. Kenya is said to be importing more than 200 megawatts from this project. Djibouti, Sudan, and their plans to include Yemen, Somalia, and Eritrea into this project as well. Why would it be stopped? Why would such a multifaceted, multinational project be stopped because of 500,000 people?
Well, we have never been against Kenya sourcing power from whatever source, but we are saying sourcing power at what consequences? Number one, Lake Turkana wind power sits right in my backyard in Lake Turkana. Number one, it's natural, it's Kenyan owned. The first phase alone of that project is enough to generate a third of Kenya's power needs. So you've only exploited the wind farm. You've not even talked about solar. In Turkana, the sun has never stopped shining for the last 40 years I've been alive.
Lion, I have to interrupt and say, you know, the setup cost of having solar energy in this country is extremely high. Even if we wanted to, it would be very capital intensive, and the government might just be looking at an easier, cheaper option in Ethiopia.
Well, wind power is equally a very cheap source. If you look at that resource right now, it is right in our backyard, all right? The wind has never stopped blowing all along. Why would we import this power at the expense of creating all these monumental problems?
All right, we have to wind up, but I do have to ask you something that Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi said of, you know, people like you who are against the project. He said, and I'm quoting, "They don't want to see developed Africa. They want us to remain underdeveloped and backwards and serve their tourists as a museum." What do you have to say about that? Is it an issue of stopping development?
I will just say development at what cost? At the expense of rendering other people destitute? I have a problem with that.
And the World Bank has obviously come out against this. The vice president of the World Bank said that he was categorical that this project should stop. But at the same time, the World Bank has offered Ethiopia loans which are going to create a line of power from Ethiopia to Kenya. It seems like you're fighting this battle against very big giants globally. Do you think you're going to win?
We did not anticipate fighting anybody. The world is just going natural, and natural means sourcing power from natural resources. You know, wind
renewable
and solar.
Sources, you mean?
Yeah, renewable resources that are less problematic and they are available and cost less.
Well, there might be a Kenyan watching as we wind up who's thinking, okay, this is something that's going to happen on Lake Turkana. It's probably going to give me as a Kenyan power. I won't have blackouts. I'll be able to manufacture my goods. Why should I care?
Well, 50 years down the line, our own country right now is battling what I'll purely call PhD in my part of the world, which teasingly I will say poverty, hunger, and disease in Turkana. Every time an image of Turkana comes into mind, I'm sure most Kenyans will think of poverty, hunger, and disease. We're tired of being given food aid. We're tired of being looked at belonging to some sort of a fourth-class citizen of this country. We just want to be allowed to live our lives. You know, right now, water has been discovered in Turkana. It's wanting to have this water being discovered, but people are still thirsty. People are still thirsty. You know, why has this water not been used to irrigate the land? Turkana is not a desert. Yes, it is a desert, but there's plenty of water. I cannot understand why 50 years down the line we cannot feed our own people.
And finally, Gideon, as we wind up, you know, there's a bunch of Kenyans who are probably watching us right now thinking, why should I care? There's 500 megawatts that are going to be imported from Ethiopia are going to give me less power outages. Manufacturers are thinking more power to manufacture my goods, better for the economy. Why should they be worried about this?
Well, I must admit that none of us are against development. And Kenya will never have enough power at some point. But damming is old school. It's never done anywhere in the world right now. Why would it be done in Africa?
But it's being done in China, surely, the Three Gorge Dam.
Well, and to be very precise right now, you know, the world is just going natural. Why don't we go natural and source power from the wind and the solar?
And finally, from Meles Zenawi, who said of activists like you who are against this project, and I quote, "They don't want to see developed Africa. They want us to remain underdeveloped and backwards and serve their tourists as museums." What do you have to say about that? I mean, this is the Prime Minister of Ethiopia saying that you do not want development, that the reason, your sole reason for stopping this is to progress an agenda of anti-Africanist development.
That is quite interesting, but I must emphasize one more time, we are not against the development per se, but if development means messing the environment, messing the lives of the poorest, I have a problem with that.
All right. That's why we wind up this chat. Thank you so much for coming to join us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Your view. Remember, Save Lake Turkana campaign project. If you just Google that, I'm sure you'll get a ton of information with regard to this project. And there is Gibe 4 and 5, which is set to come up after this project is completed. So get to know what's happening before that begins. My name is Edith Kimani. It was a pleasure to have you on KTN Morning Express.